Oh, there's Mr. Matt.
Oh, what?
All
what
right.
Perfect timing.
Welcome to another episode of the Freezin NFC North Podcast, episode number 10. We are joined this week by Gridiron Grubb. How's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Doing
Uneducated Takes. Cooper, how's it going?
I'm doing lovely. Thank you. This timing is truly incredible. You guys will never know.
Perfect timing. We're joined by quarterback Matt in for Daniele, our Packer insider this week. How's it going?
What's going on, man? Doing good. Division round playoffs, and I'm sorry to your guys' teams that are sitting at home, but
mediocre. Man.
Sorry, not sorry. Probably right there.
But we're excited over here. I'm actually going to the game Saturday, so I'm pretty stoked. So,
oh, cool, nice.
So yeah, there's a lot to talk about this week. You know, obviously we've got that divisional preview of the Niners, Packers, Bears, Vikings coaching candidates, and then what's next for the Lions. So there's a lot this week. Let's get right into it since you're on with us right away here, Matt. Obviously welcome, and let's look at that 49ers Packers game. It's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I really think so. And, I obviously think one crazy fact about this game is the fact that Jimmy G has never thrown a pass under like 40 degrees in a game. I mean, that is mind blowing. And you would never think of something like that. And then you got the 49ers, I guess they're 31st or 32nd in the league in defending number one wide receivers of teams. So, that interests me considering Green Bay's got Devontae Adams. I got a buddy who's a Titans fan, and he was talking about how A.J. Brown just absolutely destroyed San Francisco secondary. That's something to keep an eye on. Yeah. So, I think for Green Bay, they just got to stop the run. And, the first quarter is really going to be a tell for me because I don't want the Packers to not get the ball and then the Niners drive down and get some like 15, 10, 12, 15 play drive, take off 10 minutes of the clock, and they're up 7-0 with 5 minutes left in the first quarter. And now Green Bay's possessing the ball for the first time. And if they go 3 and out, I mean, the Niners are kind of in business at that point because now you're talking, the first quarter is just about to end and the Niners have the ball up 7-0. I mean, that's not good for Green Bay. So, that's really the key to me. I mean, I've watched a lot of the Niners defense and what coverages they were rolling out on Dallas, and be interesting to see if they bring that same coverage out against Green Bay. So.
Oh yeah. Well, hopefully, I would imagine not. That's just so often a mistake. Like we saw, who do we see do that? The Chargers, like when they shut down Lamar and then they ran the same zone defense against Brady. I hope not. I'd like to hope that the 49ers will bring out a little more, just a different, more targeted defense. But yeah, when you mention it, they don't really have. They do have, I guess Josh Norman, but it's not the same, right? They don't have any premier lockdown corners, right?
No, they're not. But if you look at it, and that's where we're going, where Matt was talking a second ago, this is, to me, and this, I talked to you guys earlier in our chat, and if I was Green Bay, this couldn't have worked out worse. I'm just telling you right now, This team and the 49ers has been on fire for 8 weeks, and their stats look like crap because of their first 8 weeks of the season looked like crap. But if you go off stats, you're in trouble for a playoff game. And I'm just telling you right now, the way this team is playing, look what they did to the Cowboys last week. Now, you can talk about, if you take Dak, he's different than Aaron Rodgers, correct. But that receiving core in Dallas has definitely got to step up on the receiving core. I know they got you got Adams in Green Bay, but you got Adams in Green Bay. You don't have tight ends, and your second and third guys are definitely not what the second and third guys are in Dallas. And so if they can get after him like they did this week, because the 49ers, they only rush 4. If Bosa plays, if he gets out of concussion protocol, they only rush 4 guys. The rest of that team is playing. That's why the coverage works so well. The linebackers and the secondary work together as a unit, and they've looked really good for, again, 6, 7, 8 weeks. This team has been on fire, And the last thing you want to do is play the team that's been on fire and had a playoff game win already. So and don't get me wrong, the Packers are the Packers, and Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers.
Super Bowl favorites for sure.
It's different than Dak Prescott when you start pressuring. But at the same time, I know the Packers, they got like Bakhtiari back, and they got some guys coming back on the line. But it's going to be, I think, if I would have much rather, if I was Green Bay, I don't care what the seedings look like, I would have much rather played a different team than the 49ers right now. And that's just where I'm at. And this is what we were talking about weeks ago. Yeah. I think it's great that Green Bay got the home game because they're going to need it, I think, against this 49ers team.
Well, you would want, obviously, to have played the Philadelphia Eagles or something, but, we know the NFL wasn't going to let that happen. Honestly.
I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles were going to let that happen to me.
Yeah, it might be a mixture of both, honestly. But, my thing is this, and the Niners played a lot of cover 6 shell against Dallas, which is a 4 shell to one side and a 2 shell to the other side. And so what they were doing was having one corner, and how you can tell a cover 6 a lot of the times is one corner is pressed up right on his receiver. He's looking square at his chest. The other corner sitting about 7 to 10 off with his eyes peeled at the quarterback in the backfield. So if you look at that side where the 7 to 10 off is going on is usually where the corner is going to bail. And that other safety is playing a quarters coverage on that side. And then on the cover 2 side, you got corner in the flat and the other safety is playing deep half. So the underneath on the cover 4 side should be wide open. And what I keep telling people is Green Bay offensively needs to run a ton of 20 personnel, which is just 2 running backs, no tight ends. I mean, you could go 21 personnel. Yeah. You could even go 21 personnel and put Mercedes Lewis in there in the middle if you wanted to, and say,
which is more their style for sure. But I like the 20. I like the 20
because if you go 20 personnel, you go Dillon and Jones in the backfield. You could motion Jones out on a swing route and either throw it to him if they don't bump the linebacker out. If they do bump the linebacker out of the box to follow him in motion, then hand the ball off. Or if they bring a nickel guy in and leave him out there, then that's fine. The nickel guy's going to have to bump down on Jones now, which opens a one-on-one slant with Devontae. Or if they're going to bring their safeties down to stop Jones or Dillon, cool. We have Marquez Valdez-Scantling over the top. You have Cobb underneath. Lazard's the best blocking receiver in the league. So if you do go 20 personnel, you're not really missing anything by having a third receiver in there. So in my opinion, I mean, they can rush 4 all they want, but I think this is where there's no excuses for Green Bay. You're at home. And you need to play your game. You need to be creative, especially on defense. With Joe Barry getting all these names back, and I mean, I understand Za'Darius is coming back, hasn't practiced since week 1. You can't expect Za'Darius to go out there and have 40, 50 plays. I think Green Bay fans need to chill on that just a little bit. But 15 to 20 plays, heck, you might get 2 or 3 impactful plays out of that you're not going to get from a practice squad guy who's been filling in. Tipa Galea or Jonathan Garvin aren't going to get the plays that Za'Darius might get. So, and just having a former Pro Bowler's name out there says to an offensive line, we can't double team Kenny Clark on the 0 or 1 technique anymore. We have the Smith brothers now and Gary and Whitney Merciless. How about that? I mean, he tore his bicep in November. That's a 6 to 8 month process. And now you're back in 2 months, and he's back. I mean, that's ridiculous to me.
Being back though, and being 100% is a different story, and especially at that position.
We'll see.
If you got a torn
bicep, somebody told me he was back 100%, which is what I found crazy. That he said something to the team about like, I'm going to work my tail off and train and rehab like hyperbolic chambers, like just lifting 5-pound dumbbells the day like after he was hurt, like as 2.5, 5 pounds, all the way back to full strength. Like I was hearing something about his rehab was nuts. Like nobody does that.
Yeah, but go ahead.
No, go. Yeah, I had something else.
So you look at it. I mean, we in the NFC we had that earlier in the season, right? With Russell Wilson, right? He was supposed to be out for.
There you go.
How many weeks? And he literally said he rehabbed 19 hours a day. But how crappy did Russell Wilson look for 5 straight weeks when he came back early? So
good point.
It didn't. And then playing the game, getting in a game and being in that atmosphere is totally different than being in shape, and when you got to jam with your arms and you've got to push these heavy ass dudes off your, that's a huge part of the game is these jab, punches coming into these offensive linemen. And so we'll find out. Right. And I'm not taking away from these guys. These guys are amazing. That's why we talk about these guys is, these pro athletes are friggin' amazing, man. So, but can he get those jab punches? Does he have moves? Can he pull on the offensive lineman? Can he do the things that you need to do in order to be strong up front? And so
I might be biased. I might be biased, but I think being a quarterback is the hardest position to come back from after a long injury.
It's a little harder.
Well, if you're a throwing hand, but if you're a big time defensive lineman and you've got to push around 330 and 350 pounds of meat every
single play,
and you've got to jab them with those arms to make sure you get, especially for Merciless. That's a guy who can be big in the run game. But the way you're going to stop the run game is with
physicality,
catching those offensive linemen coming out of their stance.
I will say, Anquan Smith did play a full season with the torn pec once.
Yes. I'm not saying
exceptions every once in a while. That's according to Alex Boone.
Schematically, it's harder to come back as a quarterback. Physically, it's kind of it doesn't really matter the position. I guess you could say it's more of a like. How tough is this dude? How tough? I mean, I saw a news article one time that Brett Favre had like 20 different injuries, and even down to mangled throwing hand, and it says he's probable. Yeah. He's fine. And I'm like, crazy, who writes that in a newspaper? And this guy goes out there and plays.
I've watched lots of players play with lots of things over the years. This is just a playoff game, and so lots of guys try to come back. They try to insert themselves in lineups, and we've also seen this in playoffs. A lot of times it doesn't work. We're going to find out with Derrick Henry this week, right? Everybody expects Derrick Henry. Oh, he did, and we know we've seen this beast before. He's a beast, and his workout ethic is a beast. But does that mean he can not, this is the NFL, and I know it's Derrick Henry, but can he step on a field and just be Derrick Henry right away? And so it's just those type of things that I see for the Packers that they got a bye week, and that was the huge thing that they got was this bye week because having the home game was probably number one, but having the bye week, I don't know, that might be actually 1A because, and 1B because they've got to have some of these guys be a little healthy. They won't be in game shape. Like Bakhtiari and these guys aren't going to be in game shape in 2 weeks. So
on that point though, how have the Packers done coming off bye weeks?
I was just about to say they've not been good the last 2 years. I mean, you could even go back to LaFleur's first year, and they got off that bye and went to the Chargers, got smoked by the LA Chargers in LA. And then, last year they were decent off the bye, beating the Rams in the divisional round, but still, like, you got to have a little bit of a concern. I guess the hope is, Green Bay's never lost back-to-back with LaFleur. Well, they lost to the Lions, so there you go. Maybe that's a cause to put it say on we're all right. But you were talking about the pass rush. One thing I'll say too is cold weather does help offensive lines more than it does the defensive line because the defense already has to worry about jumping the snap. And when it's cold, that field gets frozen and it's really hard to get footing. I mean, that affects obviously receivers, DBs trying to stem all that stuff, but it affects pass rushes. That's why I tell people, I mean, same for Green Bay. You can't just expect Darius is going to come in and just be a workhorse. You can't expect Nick Bosa to even have that big of a game. And my thing is Green Bay really did well blocking teams that had that guy. They didn't allow anything against the Browns and Myles Garrett. They didn't give up anything against the Ravens hardly got after him. So I'm just looking at those teams. TJ Watt really hardly got after Rodgers either.
And I would be more concerned, and this is kind of what derailed the Dallas game as well. I'd be more concerned with the pressure up the middle. Like DJ Jones and Kentavious Street, who is an awesome, and Armstead. Oh, is Armstead back too? Oh, you're right.
Eric Armstead, he killed it last week.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he was a big problem for that Dallas team.
Man, could you imagine if they still had Buckner? Oh my gosh. I don't know why they let that man
I can't
walk.
believe they let that relationship sour and just like didn't pay.
He was good.
That D-line would be so dirty. And in fact, they wouldn't be playing the Packers this week because they might have been they might have been fighting for the 1 seed had they had that defensive line like that.
Well, going back to talking about comebacks and the previous matchup. So obviously the Packers won 30-28 back in September, right? And these some of the keys were from that game. Obviously Devontae Adams, the turnover margin, because obviously the Packers got out to that 10 point halftime lead, and they allowed the 49ers to come back. So, I don't know if that's going to be an issue. If you kind of get a lead, is that going to be enough for the Packers defense to kind of hold?
I get really nervous when Green Bay actually leads games a lot of the times because I feel like Green Bay plays down to their opponent. I feel like they get one thing Green Bay does that just drives me insane is they get so complacent, like super complacent. You don't see this team, and this is a problem that I'm concerned about. They don't blow anybody out. And I'm sorry, everyone's like, well, we blew the Vikings out. Okay, Cousins did not play in that game. I don't care what anyone says. Like, Cook was not fully himself, and they had to be one-dimensional because there was no threat of a pass anywhere.
One of the worst backups in the league, too, to be fair.
Right. I mean, I sat there and I thought about Brett Hundley days in Green Bay, we're lining up Seneca Wallace against the Bears. So, my thing is like, I feel like Green Bay plays down to their opponent. You're letting Tyler and Tyler Huntley's legit. I think he's going to eventually get a contract somewhere, but you're playing down to your opponent like a ton. Trailing at half against the Lions in week 2, a bunch of stuff. Like there's just too many times that Green Bay does not blow teams out. And we've seen that. So
and they looking at that as well, they lost the turnover margin 2-0 in that game to the 49ers. So
yeah, and what I've always noticed about Green Bay that a lot of people aren't talking about either is and this does concern me a ton is, speaking of turnovers, you bring up a great point. I get concerned about Green Bay with the aspect of they're number 1 in the league in the least amount of turnovers committed. If they commit that one mistake, if Rodgers throws that pick that you never see, could that just completely silence like, oh my gosh, he really threw one? I go back when he threw that rare one against the Bucs in the NFC Championship last year. It was like, what just happened? And you could tell like the energy was not there as soon as he threw that. It's like, I mean, it's probably like how the Philistines felt when Goliath was slain. It's like, what just happened,
True.
So, so I mean, it's just, I get concerned about that. And then I've noticed all the games Green Bay's lost this year, they did not force a turnover in. So if they don't force a turnover, can the defense just get stops?
Luckily for them, Jimmy G practiced in full, so there'll probably be.
Here's the thing about that, though. They have now, because of Jimmy G's thumb and his throwing hand, it's not a passing team, and Shanahan has worked around that, and that's going to be the big key of this game. That's why, again, I'm just saying with football knowledge, if I was the Packers as a coach preparing for this game, I'm just telling you, this is going to be – I know a lot of people aren't picking the Niners because they're having to go to Lambeau, but I'm just telling you right now, if the Niners come out like they did against the Cowboys, and like Matt's saying here, let's say they come out and let's say they get the football first half, right? Or first possession. I don't like it. They drive down, they run the ball. What they're going to do in this game, because they don't want Aaron Rodgers to have the football, and if that defense can't stop all these special runs that the 49ers, they're coming up with some really unique where they're pulling guards and tackles off the back end, but having the running back go that way and then handing the ball off on the backside with these pulling guards on counters to Deebo Samuel. And the Cowboys couldn't stop it. And I tell you what, the Cowboys have a really amazing defensive line and linebacker core, and they could not figure it out. Now it's on tape, but it's been on tape for weeks, and these teams have not been able to stop it with the Niners.
Yeah, and they change it too, right? They'll change the look to open up holes based on what defenses like to do.
They'll combo down to backer even.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty
You know,
wild.
they'll send
Yeah,
two
it's
guys
pretty
straight
wild.
at the mic.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know?
No, and it's really exotic. We see a lot of exotic schemes, and obviously Cooper here. You've been watching the Vikings, so you've been watching Zimmer. You've seen some real exotic blitz packages on the defense.
Yeah.
But Shanahan is coming up with some real exotic running game. I mean, it's incredible how
It's
where
my
these guys
favorite
are
offense
pulling
to
from.
watch right now.
Last week, I don't know if you guys noticed some of this. They had tackles pulling. Now, in the NFL game, you don't see tackles pulling to the other side of the line. That is not, you have guards and centers pull out, but seeing tackles come all the way across the line on these runs. So I'm saying it's really exotic. And if I'm Green Bay, and this is what I'm saying, they come out, the 49ers get the ball, they drive down on the run. And just like Matt said, what happens if Aaron Rodgers comes out or Jones or somebody fumbles or Aaron Rodgers does throw that weird pick? And now all of a sudden, what happens to that momentum in Green Bay? And I'm just telling you, the 49ers have been really dirty for weeks of killing teams' momentum early. Yeah. And that's why they've won, because they've killed teams' momentum out of the box.
Interesting. And I suppose the only and I would like to see that too, because I want to see a close game. I just want to see a good game, because this is before I get to my point, one of my favorite play-up matchups of all time. I grew up in the 90s, like Young versus Favre. Like, these games were always epic, and I'm really glad they're playing. But this is still a
Cowboys Niners, now Packers Niners.
I know, it's just classic.
Let's just have the 1996 divisional playoffs when we smoked the Niners in Lambeau in that rain game.
Exactly.
I'm good with that.
I remember that too. Yeah. No, but and I think the counter to that is the Packers can lose 3 quarters and still win this game. Right. It can turn so quickly, and especially in a game that you predict is going to be close, the safe bet is usually to go with the team that's pretty much a lock to have better quarterback play, right? But no, it could happen. It could happen. We've seen it happen before. We saw it happen last week too. The best offense in the NFL, maybe, so it is possible.
Well,
but that's a different.
I was going to say, I was going to say on that, Matt. Obviously, you played the quarterback position. What with Jimmy G not throwing a pass, under 40 degrees, what does that do to the hand and just like grip or talk about that a little bit? I mean, that's
high of 14, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, and they're saying that could even be
deflate the ball a little bit. Ask Brady.
Yeah. You maybe just have a couple more linemen report eligible and do some of those gimmicky plays too. Little easy dump offs that they wouldn't expect. But I mean, I don't really fully buy the notion that he's never thrown a pass in cold. Like, you can't tell me he's not like in an off season or the season's over right away, flown to another state and thrown some cold passes and trained in it. Or as a kid, what, has this guy never seen snow in his life or something? You can't tell me he's never been in a backyard or something.
He did play in New England, and the Bay Area is cold, to be fair.
Right.
Bay Area gets colder than 40. Yeah.
I mean, a game situation is a lot different. A start than practice, the game speed. But you can't tell me he's not sure how to grip the ball in cold. Like, they're taught this, they're trained this, even down to high school. I mean come on, let's be honest. Illinois. Right. So I don't feel like it's anything different than what he's experienced before, except for the fact that he's playing in the cold against NFL speed. That's all this is, However, with his hand injury and the shoulder sprain now that's new, I mean, this gets a little bit interesting now, because now you got two injuries to a major side of a quarterback. I mean, I think both are on his throwing hand and throwing arm, correct? I think both was the throwing hand and the throwing shoulder.
I'm not sure which side the shoulder.
If I'm not mistaken, it was both on the throwing side. So now, I mean, you talk, grip is already crazy in the cold. He's already got that hand injury. And now his follow-through and his arm strength could go downhill with the shoulder problem, because I've experienced shoulder injuries. I mean, it definitely takes a toll on you. So I've separated mine. So, I mean, there's that. So, I mean, honestly, I feel like the biggest fear I have isn't so much if Jimmy G plays or not. It's the fear of, I wonder if they bring Trey Lance in the red zone and run some read option and just say, you couldn't stop it in San Francisco. We're going to hit you with it here in Green Bay. That would be an oddball. And, I heard some article that they're trying to make Trey Lance Aaron Rodgers this week as the scout team quarterback, like just have him throw the ball a ton and, try to be Aaron Rodgers, like just ridiculous amounts of like throwing under pressure, back shoulder, like whether he throws picks or not, just give the first team defense a look.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they are the same hand, by the way, because he tried to protect his thumb by falling on his elbow.
We just had comments popping up on the show that he said both throwing arms. Niners fans,
perfect.
Go Niners.
Yeah.
I don't see who the name was, but
Ali, yeah. So when you look at that, you look at quarterbacks, the elephant in the room as well is that Rodgers has never beaten the 49ers in the playoffs. I mean, that has to be on his mind, doesn't it?
I think it does. And everyone's saying, oh, well, it's cold. They're not going to handle it. If I remember correctly, the Niners came in with Kaepernick and beat Green Bay in the cold, and it was even worse temperatures than this game. You go back and that game just drives me nuts. You give up the outside contain and let Kaepernick on 3rd and long scramble for a first down to get in field goal range. All you had to do was get that stop. That's all you had to do, And who knows if they really honestly put up some sort of Marcus Mariota package for Trey Lance in this game like the Raiders do with Mariota. You don't
We know they're capable.
Shanahan's a wizard, man.
Yeah, we saw Shanahan rotate plays, by the way, in the preseason where he went Lance Garoppolo, on a touchdown drive. You can do
I'm telling you right now, I would fear what this specialized run game is going on because it's unique and it's every week. And Jimmy G doesn't have to. If you watch the throws that are happening, they're all little dig routes over the middle to Ayuk. They've got the new kid that's popped up. Is it Jenkins, I think.
Yeah.
And now he's like a 3rd down specialist. This guy, but everything is short, little curl routes, little screen passes to Deebo Samuel out of the backfield. Nothing is like down the field, so they're not having to force the ball down the field. They're going to control the game, and that's their plan. Just saying, like this is what they're going to do. Now, whether they accomplish that or not, we don't know. But their game plan is going to be keep Rodgers on the sideline, get the ball to Deebo Samuel as many times as possible, and open up these dig routes over the middle, right? You get these linebackers crashing, and that's what's been happening, right? You get the secondary members because they start sending Ayuk and these guys deep, and then you get the linebackers crashing on the run and trying to stop these screen passes, and all of a sudden they start popping these things, these dig routes and these in routes and these bow and arrow routes over the middle. And that's what they've been doing week by week with his thumb worse. And now he's getting better and better with his. Now he's got the shoulder, but it's Jimmy Garoppolo. So every week it's like 6 or 7 things anyway. So it's ankles and calves and shins and wrists and thumbs. And Jimmy Garoppolo has been playing hurt his entire career. And again, he played up in New England. And I always remember when he came in New England in that game, everybody thought, oh, this is, Brady's hurt. Garoppolo's coming in. This is going to be a nightmare. And he came out and he's played in some cold weather up in New England. So he might not have been on the field for some of those games, obviously, when Brady was playing up there, but he's been in the weather. But Shanahan has this, I'm just telling you, he's got a game plan for this. And the game plan is keep Aaron Rodgers over there on the sideline and we work the ball with these special plays. And he's got to do that. If the Niners don't do that, they don't have a chance. They don't. The secondary is not special enough to keep having Rodgers out on the field. If they're going 3 and out, Rodgers and the Packers are going to kill him. But if they come out and they go ahead.
And I was saying, I was looking at the stats. Jimmy G didn't even hardly throw the ball in the NFC Championship 2 years ago. No. I mean, I get the weather, and the weather was nice in that game.
13 throws, if I remember. Is it 13?
It was something like that. It was, it was, it was really like just. I think it was 8. I think it was 8.
8.
I think it was 8. Wow. Yeah, 8. So I'm double checking here to even just make sure. But the thing about it was, I remember Jimmy G. It was like I don't think he had more than 10 throws. If I'm like 90% sure because I remember just being so irritated. Like, can we make this guy throw the ball, please? And it was the same defense, guys, that Green Bay has now.
Right.
The same defense. Amos and Savage were still the safeties. Jair was still at corner. Yeah, you didn't have Rasul Douglas and Eric Stokes, but they shouldn't be asked to come in and help with the run. If you're not getting it with your front 7, there's a problem. Now, we didn't have Devondre Campbell. That would be the big one that I would say maybe could have an impact in this game. Might have an impact as far as stopping the run. But we can't rely on one player. Kenny Clark is making way too much money. He needs to be the big force that's getting in the backfield. And hopefully Shanahan respects the fact that the Smiths are out there. Rashawn Gary's come up. But I remember seeing Kittle push around Zadarius Smith in 2019.
Yeah,
that is not. They're not run stoppers.
Yeah.
They're pass rushers.
And that's the trouble with this week. Again, this 49er, what Shanahan is putting together is what these coaches like Belichick and these defensive gurus have put together on defensive sides of the ball to protect their offenses, right? But now Shanahan's putting together an offense to protect his entire team. They are going to, their goal is to drive down the field, play by play, run some clock. You don't see the 49ers winning by 40. That's not how they're going to do it ever right now under Shanahan.
No.
They're going to run
Jimmy
the ball
G,
and control the clock.
It was 8 throws, 6 for 8 was 77 yards.
That's what
I'm saying. I knew it was 8 or something. Yeah. I knew it was not 10. Because I remember being so angry about it.
That's the goal this week for sure.
Mostert's not with them anymore, but he had 220 yards and 4 touchdowns.
And Mitchell
Samuel had 2 carries for 43 yards. Yeah. Mitchell's shit too.
And here's the thing too. I point out the Niners won last week. What did I think Kittle had 1 catch?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
He was blocking though. Oh, he was blocking. Oh
Kittle
my God.
Again, that's the point. That Kittle, if you look, go ahead and look. You can pull up any fantasy stat or anything you want to look at. Kittle's getting like 3 fantasy points, 4 fantasy points a week. And then he has 1 blow-up week when like teams aren't covering him and Jimmy G was filling it, throwing it over the middle. But that's what's happening right now is Kittle is blocking.
Oh, man. That's too.
And they're using Deebo Samuel, Mitchell out of the backfield, Ayuk on these screens, Mitchell even going out on running back screens. They flank him out. They do all these things. It's become super exotic. It was where I think a couple years ago or even last year where I think they thought Kellen Moore was going to go with the Cowboys. Is now kind of Shanahan took what he was doing and he saw what some of these other teams are doing. He's like hybrided it into this. It's scary. It's not an offense. Again, it's not a scary offense that's going to put up 45 points. It's just not. It's not. But it's an offense that is going to confuse your defense consistently and keep control of the football down the field. They don't even care if they get field goals. That's the point. Like they're like, hey, let's just get down. Let's be sure we get points on every possession. Or we get down and we get to the 50 and we punt and we change field position every time we get the ball. And that's their goal. Yep. And you've got to make Aaron Rodgers, even when he does get on the field, you've got to make him drive the length. Now we know he can do it consistently, but you've just got to make that the thing.
This is the type of team that if they hold Green Bay to 3 points, it's a win every single time for the Niners. If Green Bay does not get touchdowns in this game, this is a type of team you have to score touchdowns. If Green Bay has to settle for 3 points at any point in the game, I'm going to be really irritated because this is not the type of team you could do that.
I was just going to say here
this week. That's their game this week.
I was going to say here, I feel like we become the let's try to scare the Packer fans this week. So now
we're all going to pick them.
I think they should be scared.
I'm still confident.
Yeah. So score wise, what do we got?
I do think Green Bay wins by 10. I don't like them winning by any more than that, but I do think Jimmy G is going to at some point make a mistake. And honestly, I think with Green Bay getting the guys back, like I said, even if they don't play more than 15, 20 plays, that locker room is going to be so amped up for like, man, this guy's back now. Like, man, my brother's back. My guy in the locker room's back. Because from the aspect of when I played, like what's crazy about it is you got guys all year. Like if you're healthy, it causes complacency because it's just like it's the same team. There's no adversity, right? That was Green Bay last year. They were healthy last year. Having some injuries makes the next man up mentality come and really test what type of team you are. So I got to give that to Green Bay that like, hey, we may not be blowing teams out, but in the NFL, just find a way to win. Just win. That's what you need. Green Bay's doing that. They're showing that they're willing to get I will say this team is more physical and willing to get dirty than teams in the past. I thought teams in the past were a little bit too finesse. And come playoffs, it's like, yeah, you play the Bucs, you play, the Niners, you're going to get punched in the mouth. I feel like Green Bay is punched a little bit this year. Going into Arizona with 11 starters out and winning that game, they punched Arizona in the mouth. I will say, my thing about it is I don't see Green Bay winning by more than 10 because I do think the Niners have that team that can control the clock. And I do think Green Bay, until they can show me that they're not going to play down to their opponent, I just don't see them winning by more than like 10 points. They should win by 10 points because I think the injuries of key players is a big thing. Fred Warner, we don't know what's going to happen with that ankle. I mean, I guess he's going to play, but he's not going to be 100%. And Nick Bosa, I expect, will probably clear concussion protocol. Jimmy G, though, with the quarterback, I mean, he's got two big issues on the same side, on his throwing side, but this should more so tell the Packers, okay, we got thrown against 8 times in 2019. Let's expect it to be 4 times this game. Like, he is not throwing the ball more than 4 or 5 times. It's cold. He's injured. There's no way this man is throwing more than 8 passes this game. And if he does, it's because we're up 17. And here's the thing. Everyone's saying, well, the Niners were down 17 against the Rams. That's LA. This is Lambeau. You can't expect to be down 17 in Lambeau and then turn to Jimmy G and just come back in that game. LA is a different story. I can expect that. Anyway. No. Exactly. So my thing is, if Green Bay can get that 14, 17-point lead, there's no reason we're losing that game unless Green Bay makes a mistake themselves. That's what I get worried about, is Green Bay making that key mistake, that Brandon Bostic jumping in front of the onside kick instead of letting it go to Jordy Nelson. That, just some sort of just fluke thing that I feel like I've seen with Green Bay in years past. I can't tell you how many playoff losses.
Yeah, it's
right.
Been a lot.
The Terrell Owens catch in San Fran. The Favre throws 6 picks against the Rams. I'm just tired of the playoff
Seahawks
choking. Right, the Seahawks. That's why I said the Brandon Bostic onside kick. Yeah. So Green Bay was 13-0 until Michael Vick came in and beat Brett Favre in that wild card game. Since then, Green Bay has been 7-8. 7-8. And you can't even get me started on road games. Like, Green Bay has not defended Lambeau well. And that concerns me. It's like, I'm confident because Green Bay has a good team. And I feel like when you've had injuries, from a playing perspective, when that guy comes back, it puts a juice in the locker room like, okay, we got our boys back. We got our former Pro Bowler back. We got our former All-Star back. This guy's back. It creates such a hype vibe in that locker room. There's no reason Green Bay shouldn't be amped for this game. And there's no reason that Joe Barry shouldn't be more creative than he's ever been. I never see pass rush stunts or any stunts by that D-line. This is the time now.
I'd say, like, Cooper, offline, you said obviously this is probably one of their best opportunities in a while.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the most complete team the Packers have had over the last, 3 years where they've been NFC Championship game, NFC Championship game. This is definitely the most complete and by far the deepest, because we've seen them not be derailed by what they've been derailed by in the past, which is injuries and the backups not stepping in, right, and doing the job. And they've been honestly stepping in and excelling to the point where it's almost negligible to change, or some of them. So that's I still like Green Bay in this game, though I will be rooting for San Francisco because they've always been my second favorite, but I still like Green Bay in this game.
Yeah, I know you guys all be rooting for the Niners. It's obvious,
I root for the Packers more than you think, but not against San Francisco.
And what I told you guys, and we had talked again off air, and I told you, like, this is my controversial pick, and I think I really do think now Aaron Rodgers, I think, should be on a mission this year. I do. And I think that he should come out on a mission. I just don't know if I'm going to see it. Every year, I expect Aaron Rodgers to be on a mission in the playoffs, and I just don't see it. It comes down to a game. It comes down to a play that doesn't get made. It comes down to a play that should have been made. But my controversial pick this week, and I'm like, confused in my own mind about this because I don't know what team I'm going to see come out, or what game, I guess I should say, from Aaron Rodgers. We know he'll heat up at some point and he'll have some drives. I'm just telling you right now, and I've got the Niners in this game, and I'm just telling you they're hot. I'm also going in this. I'm also a big hockey fan, so when it comes down to playoffs, and you see these teams come into the playoffs in hockey, and it's the guys at the end of the season that were fighting for playoff positions. It's like two of those teams come into the playoffs in hockey, and they do what the 49ers are doing right now. And I'm just telling you, the 49ers are hot.
This is it.
They're a different team than they were 7, 8, 9 weeks ago. And I just think they go into Lambeau. They've got something going right now. Look, they went into Dallas. They went into Jerry's house last week, and they did the same thing that I think they're going to do this week. I don't think that if the game gets away from them early, then they got no chance. Just like Matt said, if it gets down 17-10 early and they've got to start throwing with Jimmy G and doing these things that doesn't fit them, then they're not going to win. But I just think they pull it out this week. I think it's something like
what's the score? Yeah, give us the score.
Yeah, I think it's something like it comes down to the end again, but it's not an end for the 49ers. And Jimmy G, he's done it this year, and he's done it in the past. He's taken his team down the field when it mattered most, and he really has. He's not the comeback quarterback of all time, but I'm going 20, maybe let's say I'll give it 27-24 49ers. And I just think I don't think the Packers offense is going to come out with this high firing. I just don't think it's going to be this higher firing game that everybody thinks it's going to be from him. Even though I would love it in like my daily fantasy because I've got Aaron Rodgers and these guys in there. But I just don't think it's going to happen. Obviously I've got backup teams because of that.
The spread was 5.5. Did it move?
The spread's out. It was 5.5. It's now up to 6. And I'm telling you,
wow.
Here's the thing. I'm telling you though, you got to understand though that the Niners can run the ball all they want, but what are they going to do in covering Green Bay's passing weapons? Because their secondary is awful. Like Jason Verrett's not around.
That's what I heard last week.
But here's the thing, though.
Who was going to cover Lamb? Who was going to cover Cooper? Who was going to cover Schultz?
It's going to be a
They were sitting in a cover 6 defense with a coach that doesn't know how to scheme offensively.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy is so bland. His days are over. The best days are behind him. LaFleur is way more creative.
That's more than McCarthy. I know you got Packer bias there on the hatred, but that's actually the young kid who doesn't know actually how to change up his offense when it matters.
Well, he learned.
I think it's Dak Prescott. I think Dak Prescott had terrible. I've said it for years. McCarthy has awful clock management. Okay, I saw a meme that said down such and such amount of points, 14 seconds left. And it was a picture of the play quarterback draw on Madden, and no timeouts, and so my thing is, they were not scheming anything. The Niners were literally sitting in off coverage the whole game.
Yeah, and getting
Rodgers will eat that alive.
Yeah.
A.J. Dillon can run on that. I don't care if it's 3 yards. 3 plays of 3 yards sets a 4th and 1.
They're not going to run the same defensive coverage though. But I'm just telling you right now, they're not.
They better not go. They better not go one high ever.
No.
So if they go one high, Scantling's over the top. Or Devontae.
Just like any quarterback who's been great, doesn't matter if it's Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't matter who it is. You get that front four after them early, you're in trouble. Look, and now again. Aaron Rodgers has the experience and the talent, but look what happened this week with the Rams and Murray. You get that front four after a quarterback and you start pressuring him and you're hitting him in the face. It doesn't matter if he throws it or not, if he throws a pass or completes it, but he gets hit in the face every single play. And that's what was happening to Dak last week. So you can blame a quarterback, and it was definitely offensive scheme, but the scheme comes from Moore. And he doesn't. He's too young right now. He's too fresh and green to know how to compete against a lot of those things. So I do take that against Dallas.
You can't drop back 40 times a game against this Niners team. And the Dallas Cowboys, where were the RPOs? Where were the play action bootlegs?
That's been their problem all season. That's been their problem all season.
Green Bay does great job play actioning, and they do a great job of RPOs. What can stop a pass rush? A quick release, getting the ball out, play action and a mixture of the run and the pass. Like
this
the Packers do that motion so much with Devontae. It's brilliant because it tips the defense.
This D-line, I guarantee you, I don't care if it's Rodgers or not, they're going to knock down 5 or 6 balls that he throws this week. That's what this D-line does. Both of these guys, they get their hands up when they don't get to the quarterback. They got long arms. They cause really bad vision for the quarterback, whether they get there or not. And so you got one guy pressuring you, hitting you, and you got 3 other defensive linemen with their long ass reach, sticking their arms up, knocking down passes at the line, tipping passes that become interceptions or possible interceptions. I'm just telling you, this D-line is going to come to play this week. If they do, then they win. If they don't, then they're screwed. This really comes down to the trenches in this game, even though everybody's going to talk about Adams, Rodgers, Garoppolo, Deebo Samuel. This is going to come down to what does that defensive line do for the 49ers? How do they come out? Does Bosa pass protocol? Is he there? Because this defensive line is going to come, and they're going to be in Rodgers' face. And we've seen Rodgers in the past in playoff games crumble when that happens early. It has to happen early. If it starts later in the game, they're already up by 15, 17, 14, whatever points, then it's too late. But if it starts early, the Niners are going to actually be in control of this game at the beginning. And we know Rodgers at any moment can come down and drive down the field and make plays. We know that.
Pop the hell off. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, speaking of crumbling, just kind of like, obviously
the rest of us.
Let's kind of move it on to the topics that we maybe don't want to talk about a little bit. But we do have some Bears head coaching chatter here, some Vikings chatter. Cooper, do you want to go ahead and start with your Vikings chatter? We can kind of go with it.
Yeah, because actually, I'm actually glad Matt's on here for this. Once again, Wolfe, you're not going to know, and it'll probably end up being the last person they interview. Right? There's been a lot of coaching interviews, but I think they're mostly timing based, and these are not final because no GM. I'm not going to hire a coach before a GM. But I've been going through a lot of them, and there's a lot of weird ones. Like Quinn's going to get an interview, and it's like, no, and it's like, no, let's not do that. But what I want to talk about kind of is the type of coach I want, and I'm glad Matt's here because the type of coach I want is Nathaniel Hackett. And at first we talked about it last week, and I was like, I don't know, non-play calling, offensive coordinator with the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, yeah, sure, maybe that has something to do with it. But then I went a little deeper on it, and I realized that he has an incredible resume. This guy. So for one thing, we'll start with the Packers, right? Because in recent memory, it's all been screaming success. But before 2019, Rodgers was not the Rodgers we see today, right? Before this staff came in, Rodgers was worse. Like, not terrible, right? Like a 78 PFF grade and like, the 15th best pass defense. And, he's still got his yards. He still didn't throw very many interceptions, but the passing offense wasn't the same, right? And then all of a sudden Hackett comes in and with, of course, the entire staff. So you can't put it on one person. And all of a sudden Rodgers is back to 2016 when he had that crazy year, or 2010 when he had the crazy, second half of the season. And it's been pretty remarkable. And it's like, well, okay, how much of that do you attribute to Nathaniel Hackett? And then I go back in the career and I'm like, oh, he was the offensive coordinator for Blake Bortles when they had a top 5 offense. And I was like, okay, so it's one thing if you do it with Rodgers, but if you do it with Blake Bortles and you go to the NFC Championship game with the number 1 rushing game, the only Leonard Fournette's best year by far, and the Packers run game has also improved since Hackett's been around.
They led the Patriots in that game too.
Exactly.
They had that game.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so and you add that up to like his coaching experience, like where was Syracuse? It was nowhere, and it still kind of is, but it was good for a while when he was there, right? So every stop along the way, he has gotten an elevated performance out of the quarterback and an elevated performance out of the offense. And I don't know if I can attribute that fully to him because, there's a lot that goes into it. But I know he doesn't call plays. He's probably not in the forethought of a lot of Packers fans' minds right now. But one thing that Aaron Rodgers did say is nobody brings me more joy on a day-to-day basis than Nathaniel Hackett. And so that's one thing where Rodgers is like, I know it's overplayed how much of a prick he might be, but he doesn't say that about a lot of people, a lot of coaches, right? Where it's like, oh, this guy brings me so much joy. Like, you know what I mean? So how are Packers fans feeling about Hackett?
I love Hackett. If you ever have listened to his press conferences, I mean, he's one of the just like you. I feel like when you listen to him, he's like never had a bad day in his life. Like he is like one of the most like positive people you could ever listen to. And he's like one of those you would call like a player's coach. And you know, I feel like he would be the type of guy that would come into a team and turn around a team that is like hard on themselves or like doesn't see as themselves as a great team and come in and just turn that all around. You know, I know he kind of I honestly think he sort of got unfairly fired in Jacksonville.
He was surprised. He was like, oh, that's surprising. I'm pretty good at this.
So, you know, but Hackett is like a total players coach. He's totally class act type of guy. I just love his demeanor. I love how, you know, he doesn't seem like that screaming type of coach, but he seems like that guy that's all business when he has to be, but he makes it fun for the players. And it's like, you know, if you're getting guys to want to have fun and play for you, like, that's a great coach, you know,
fun in film sessions, right? Fun in practice where it's like a grind. It's easy to have fun when you're playing in front of like a stadium, you know.
He's the type of coach that doesn't need talent to find a way to win because he will use an energy to win the game or to win many games. Belichick, great coach, great schematic guy. Yeah. But like, and I've always said, I feel like the mean coaches seem to always win. Lombardi, Landry, you know, Saban, Belichick, and that's factual. But most of those guys, they have all the talent.
It's different,
and
right?
You see how everybody wants to go to New England. Everybody wants to go to New England after they won one. Then they go and they see how New England really is, and now everybody wanted to leave and go to Tampa, you know, and you know, or they heard from Brady and Gronk what New England was really like.
And you don't get to be a Belichick. I mean, Belichick is just like a truly unique football mind to the point where you just are allowed, where his disposition doesn't seem to matter that much, and that's like extremely rare for a head coach, right?
Yeah,
and
he was a lot more player, I would say, eccentric early in his career when he started with the Patriots.
Like Browns
but when he started at the Patriots, you know, he was a lot more. I wouldn't say he was a player's coach, but he wasn't as time went on. He grew and media things happened and the cheating and the things that came out really turned him off from being that type of coach. But if you actually ask the players, I mean, you see the guys all the time. There might have been some guys who left now as he's gotten older, but for a lot of the things, they love that guy. He jokes in practice. You hear all these things. So it just depends. You know, it depends what you get. I mean,
I think that's what the most important thing is right now for the Vikings locker room is a relatable coach. And it's not that like we don't need the opposite. Everyone's like offensive guy. I honestly couldn't care less at this point. You need a coach who can relate to these players and kind of raise that locker room out of the kind of the doldrums. They're down on themselves, like you said. They're just like, it's not a good vibe. And now, I'm not a qualified like football analyst to the point where I could accurately choose an NFL coach, but I can vibe check the hell out of people. And that is a bad vibe in that locker room. And Nathaniel Hackett is a good vibe dude. I promise you.
Like, I think like Doug Peterson from a scheme thing would be a great coach, but for the vibe, I don't think he would help the vibe. I feel like you're bringing in another Mike Zimmer, but on the offensive side.
Yeah, he's kind of a downer. He's a downer. Yeah.
Then the
you know, it's like bringing in.
They get rid of Cousins and bring in Foles. If Peterson goes there, they're just going to bring in Foles. They're going to get rid of Cousins. So that's what
so I feel like Fangio, I feel like deserves a spot somewhere. I still think
I would love him in DC. Yeah.
Now I love Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio with defense is probably the best in the league. I don't care what anyone says.
Absolutely.
I low key wish Green Bay would have gone after Fangio and honestly tried to lure him over Joe Barry. And I mean, I cannot imagine what he would do with Green Bay's defense. But I don't think Doug Peterson, I still think to this day, he never should have got fired from Philly. I think it was the wrong move. I think it was pathetic that he was fired.
And I'd be happy
should
with
have
him
kept
as coach,
Foles and him.
Yeah, I was happy. I would be happy with the Peterson hire as well, by the way. But
I don't think he's a vibe though for you guys. I feel like it's another Mike Zimmer again for the offense now. Like, you know, Mike Zimmer's this defensive guru. Peterson's an offensive guru, but do they vibe the locker room? No. I mean,
Yeah.
I look at Zimmer's press conference about Kellen Mond,
yeah.
and he's just like,
Oh
not
no, yeah,
particularly.
no, yeah.
I mean,
anyone who watched
know?
the last 2 episodes heard me go to F off on Mike Zimmer for being just a prick. But anyway, yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
what I want. I'm looking for
Yeah.
vibes. I'm looking for someone who can connect with the locker
That's
room.
Hackett.
And that's why I think I want a coach like Hackett. Whether it's Hackett, it probably won't be, right, but it could be. But I want a coach on that level who is relatable and can lift the spirit in that room. And now I'll turn it over and we can talk about some Bears candidates now.
Yeah, and I kind of on that vein, I did a Twitter poll and for Bears fans and on Twitter, and no one chose Hackett. I put Brian Daboll, Byron Leftwich, Nathaniel Hackett, and other, and 0% out of 28 votes selected. And I got to figure out how to get this on the screen. But anyway,
on face value, it's a bad pick. If you don't know, right, it just looks like a bad choice.
So I love those insights. Bears wise, I mean, really, when you kind of look at it, everybody's falling in love with the Jim Harbaugh pick. People are like, oh, got to go with Harbaugh. I don't think he wants the Bears the way it ended. I don't think he wants to go there. But he's really the only one that I think no one would complain about. When you look at it, Brian Flores is there, and Grubb. We can talk about this a little bit later, but yeah, I'm not a fan of Brian Flores. Leslie Frazier. Cooper, I'm sure you could talk about the Leslie Frazier experience.
Yeah,
you don't like Flores.
He doesn't as a coach. No, yeah, we could actually get into it.
Okay, I gotta dig into that later.
Yeah,
I need to hear why
it'll
on
be
that.
easy with Leslie Frazier because he's a wonderful man and no one has ever said a mean thing about him, and he's a complete class act. But the last time he was a head coach, he had the worst defense in the league, and he was a defensive head coach, right? He helped pioneer Tampa 2, which is, to be fair, coming back around in vogue. So, maybe he would be a little bit better this time because Tampa 2 was on the way out when he came to power. Right?
But he's a great guy. That's just not what the Bears don't need that right now.
No, and he's someone who's going to foster a good relationship with Fields. But yeah, we can go to the Brian Flores. That's going to be a fun one.
Yeah. So, Brian Flores, and a lot of it comes from, kind of what Grubb you've talked about, his relationship, kind of with Tua and everything, that whole situation, right?
Right. And that's, and that's the thing is, and we talked about that, we hit on this last week with it. Are you going to bring in a coach who in Miami, and before we went on air with this, we were talking about that, becomes a cancer in the locker room? I've never heard of that in the NFL in my life, of a coach being the cancer in the locker room, and ownership and GMs having to make a decision about, hey, this guy's a great coach on the field, but he's becoming a cancer in the locker room. And it's become, we have defensive guys who like the coach and offensive guys who are screaming at him. He's screaming at them on the top of at his lungs on the sideline. And we talked about this one week when Brissett, we were talking about him screaming on the field, holding his knee. And then he came out of the blue tent and he was ready to go. Well, I don't know if you guys have seen that, but literally Flores screams at him to get the hell back over on the sideline. He's not going, he's a total jerk to him, and you can actually watch it. There's film out there of it. Is Flores a great coach? Yes. But are you going to take Flores if you have field? So if you're a Bears fan and you want Flores, so do you want Flores and the Deshaun Watson controversy that's going to come with him to go in as your coach with Justin Fields there? Or do you want Justin Fields? Because that's what's going to happen. So do you want Justin Fields to be able to have somebody to develop him and stay a quarterback there? Or do you want the same situation you're going to get in Miami from Flores, which he's going to come in, he's already interviewing and saying he wants to, it's out there. The reports are out there. He wants Watson to be his quarterback. He comes with him as a head coach. Well, how are you going to do that in Chicago? How is Watson and Flores going to be a package with Fields sitting there? So if you're a Bears fan, do you want to get rid of Fields? Or do you want to have the same controversy?
Watson needs to be way out of the thought for the Bears. That's
here's the thing.
This is the way Flores
already
is going
had
down
that
with interviews.
I was saying we already had that with Nagy. Nagy, that wasn't his guy. Quarterback. With Trubisky, and we already went through that. So that's that makes me pause. What you want a guy, and then you look at the Belichick tree. Do you want someone who is a Belichick disciple, and I don't, I'm not really sure either.
Not with Justin Fields there.
Exactly. So, that goes into the other, candidate, he's
unless it was Josh McDaniels.
Well, and here's the favorite of a lot of people, obviously Brian Daboll, right? And he is, definitely a favorite, of a lot of people, but he also has ties, to Belichick, right? So,
and it seems like Matt was like in favor. Would you be more in favor of a Brian Flores than these other two?
So I think Flores brings in a tough-nosed thing that defines the Bears football and identity. And, so I do like Flores for that aspect. What I don't like Flores for the Bears is he's not the offensive mind that I think the Bears need. However, I think Kellen Moore is too offensive, minded that it would hurt the Bears. Well, I don't like the Kellen Moore thing. No, I kind of like a Byron Leftwich who's offensive minded, but has a tough nosed thing about him. Like he understands that the Bucs have to be tough. Yes, we have Tom Brady, but we're going to pound it with Gio. We're going to pound it with Fournette. We have Ronald Jones, and we even went and signed Le'Veon Bell for a little bit. So, and they still have him. So I think Byron Leftwich would be legit for this team. I don't mind Bellamy on the Chiefs for the Bears. I think he would be nice too. Don't mind guys.
They're not going to go the Chiefs route again.
And that's the thing. I kind of like Flores for the Vikings, but I know they won't. Because you can't go twice.
So
I think Flores is a great coach. It's just he gets too many. And I know a Dolphins fan that said they had like 2 or 3 guys calling plays. They didn't even know who really was their true offensive coordinator. Like that's a joke. That's on the head coach.
Flores is the head coach, and he named co-coordinators. He named co-offensive coordinators. There wasn't just 2 guys calling plays. He actually said, I'm going to have 2 offensive coordinators. So that's, to me, if you can't make that decision,
I think why
split.
Yeah.
I'm defending my team Flores because
couldn't be my team.
I don't like that they fired him because he did go on that crazy win streak with a lot of injuries on that Dolphins team. Yeah. I felt like,
that Dolphins team, this is what I'm saying. That Dolphins
they shouldn't have fired him.
That Dolphins team wouldn't have started out 1-7 if you didn't have people punching each other in the locker room because one plays offense and one plays defense. It's like having divorced parents and one kid likes the other parent better. And this is what was going on there. He separated the locker room between defensive players and offensive players, and he doesn't give a crap about the offensive players. And it was very obvious what was going on there. Now, Matt, I know you see me as a Lions fan here, and I've talked with these guys before, but they know I'm actually a Dolphins fan. So I
usually he gets it out before
I'm
the podcast.
I'm a Lions guy on the show, but that's actually my team. So I've witnessed this all year long, and I've witnessed it for 2 seasons.
So you're a diehard Dolphin fan then?
Yes. Marino grew
wow. He is. He is. Yeah,
13 is my number. Dan Marino, that's my, so I'm actually talking from what I've witnessed. Not only do I have NFL podcasts, but that's where I actually, I spend my time too, rooting for that team. And I've seen this guy destroy a lot. I've never seen it before. I've never seen a head coach do this before. Now I've seen there be controversy if a head coach was going to get fired and some of the players, and it becomes but this wasn't the way that it was there. He was creating the controversy. He created the controversy with Deshaun Watson. The owners, they didn't want Deshaun Watson. The GM doesn't want Deshaun Watson. But yet Flores made this whole stink and started leaking all of this stuff to the press. I don't want that guy as my coach if I'm the Bears and I have Fields. I'm just saying, he was a great coach on the field.
And so it's Leftwich then.
No,
right?
Flores would be fine in with the Giants, like where you feel like Daniel Jones has got to go and he's injured and
you should stay healthy to him.
Go start that.
I get worried with Flores.
3rd and 9 quarterback sneaks.
That's where he came into Miami. They were getting they got rid of Tannehill. Yeah. He came in and got rid of Tannehill and wanted his own guy, and then his own guy was supposedly Tua, and then he couldn't even control that relationship.
It's weird.
Then he wanted Deshaun Watson, a guy who's got
You bench
22 counts of
Fitzpatrick.
sexual, things against it.
Broke his heart.
That's not as a head coach. And I can't believe he came from the Belichick coaching thing. That's never would you think you would hear this in New England? Oh, Belichick is, Mac Jones,
true.
They drafted him.
No,
but now they want to bring in Deshaun Watson, and the defense hates the offense. And the offense
he would just be
defense.
like,
no. That's not.
So
I think 2 years ago they never should have benched Fitzpatrick. So I agree.
Well, I was just saying,
you
just kind of, getting back to topic. It took about 10 episodes to get Grubb on, his rant. So we got him on.
That's actually awesome. I'm so glad we got it out of him. Oh my
God. Speaking of kind of, getting back on topic with the Bears, I definitely do not, want anything to do with Flores. I like the Byron Leftwich pick with the Brian Daboll. I think that would be a good pick, obviously to develop, the quarterback. But I do not have confidence in this ownership group. They've already got a second interview scheduled with defensive coordinator from the Colts, Matt Eberflus, for next week.
Well, there you go. That's it. Next week he'll be your coach.
We don't even have a general
before the GM.
So, I feel like that's the way they're going to go. But definitely, like, Daboll, Leftwich.
Look, one of these guys that could develop this young quarterback.
Yes,
that's why Leftwich. I really think now he's worked with Brady for a few years. He was already an up and comer in the league. We talked about him last week. We talked about where the lineman carried him down the field when he was in the game at Marshall, the kind of attitude he has as a quarterback to play the game. I just think with Fields, the way he would fit with Fields emotionally and the way he could teach that kid to play quarterback.
And Fields needs a little bit of that.
Has heart like that. We've seen, I can't stand Ohio State. I will also put that out there.
So what are the odds? What are the odds of Elliot Wolfe going to the Vikings or Bears as a GM? His dad, Ron Wolfe, was a Packer GM. I mean, I think Elliot Wolfe, I kind of wanted Green Bay to get him over Brian Gutekunst, honestly.
And that could be the right choice. And GM is so far out of most people's depths, but I'm very, very tired of nepotism hires. We were talking about co-GMs. How about when you promote your son to be co-offensive coordinators? How about when you promote your son to be a co-offensive coordinator alongside one of the most respected defensive coaches in the league, who's been doing it for like 30 years, right? Or like 15, but that's a slap in the face, right? Or how about when you let Clint Kubiak be your offensive coordinator? Because he'll just I can force him to run the ball, and I like his dad. I want a guy, and even Nathaniel Hackett. It's true. It's so true.
But even on that vein,
and Hackett had a dad as a head coach, I know, and stuff like that. But I want a guy who's made or a gal. We interviewed. I forgot her name, so that's unfortunate. From the Eagles. I want a person who's cut their own path right now, just because the nepotism has been rampant in that building, and it has been detrimental to the team's success. Even if Wolfe is good, I don't know. I wouldn't know. But
so I was gonna say, even on that, back to sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Brian Daboll, he was high school teammates with Brian Polian. Guess who is in the Bears search?
Yeah.
Bill Polian. It's such a there's so much nepotism within the NFL. It's just crazy.
Well, look, the sad thing is there's a lot of these coaches that were not good coaches that will get jobs again next year or this year, and it just keeps going over and over and over. That's why some of these teams, they get really excited about these young coaches, and like the Kellen Moore is out there now this year, and all those things. They get excited because they want to bring that vibe, but then Kellen Moore is too green. But somebody will go out there and
somebody will hire him,
money to him, and he'll coach for 2 years, and then he'll be fired again, and because he's not ready. But Raheem Moore, like, people aren't looking at
sleeping on Raheem.
He's ready to go again. Yep. And if teams would go look at him, I think they would have. If you wanted a guy who was a good team guy and a good defensive guy, like Matt was saying here about Flores, that's a good guy where you're going to have for Chicago. If you actually wanted somebody who was going to be a players coach and who could bring in some real good offensive help to coach Fields, If you're going defensive side, he's going to be a guy that should get another look. He's even admitted it. He's like, look, I was too green and young when the Tampa Bay thing went on. And I just think that's a guy that even the Bears, but they don't have these guys on their list. Like some of these, it blows my mind of some of the coaches who would actually be good players coaches. But you look down here, you've got Flores who's fired. You got Jim Harbaugh, who's not. I'm just saying, if Jim Harbaugh coaches in the NFL, it will be the Dolphins because of the Stephen Ross connection and Michigan.
Or the Raiders.
I just don't think he's not coming out unless somebody pays him and pulls him out of there. And I don't see the Raiders doing that right now after what just went on with Gruden. They're going to be shell shocked a little bit from that. I don't see them making this. Well, they might. It's the Raiders. So
how about the Mayock firing? I kind of want Mayock almost.
Yeah, but you guys look up here and you see Flores, Leslie Frazier, and Jim Harbaugh. These are guys already coaching the NFL. They've been fired. But yet here we are rotating guys who have been terrible head coaches.
It does take, sometimes it takes a couple tries, to be honest. It's a hard job, but no, you're right, because they're connected, right? And that's how you get jobs, Yes. We all, that's how you get jobs.
My thing though is,
a person. Go ahead.
Why is nobody talking about, two people I want to talk about. What about Rich Bisaccia if he doesn't get hired from the Raiders? Yeah. Where would he? He's actually done a pretty good job considering all the drama that has gone on within that organization.
Only the Raiders would have this guy come in with all the drama, and they were not very good under Gruden for a few weeks there before all this went on. They started out the season pretty strong, but only the Raiders would go, this guy in all this controversy took us to the playoffs. Let's get rid of him. Only the Raiders.
so I want to put three names for you guys with the Bears and the Vikings. So obviously Rich, Dan Quinn, and what about Todd Bowles? If you could lure Bowles away from Tampa.
Bowles is too, in my opinion, for the Bears, too milk toast. I think, at least for the Bears,
want an amped up type guy.
Yes. It just won't excite me. I think he's a good coach, and he got a raw deal with the Jets. I just don't think he's right for the Bears, which he probably will become a Bears coach then. So
well,
there's nobody that gets a good deal with the Jets. Let's be honest.
That's true. I think you need. He just seems too quiet, I guess, and you kind of in a market like Chicago, you kind of need someone who's a little bit more outspoken, and I would hope they were looking for that kind of offensive guy, and I don't know, I don't see that, with him. But
what about Bill Callahan?
I could be convinced.
Bill Callahan head coaching again.
I don't know.
Nebraska.
Where I'm from, Nebraska. I know a lot about Bill Callahan, but you got to remember, Bill Callahan is the greatest offensive line coach in the NFL right now, and the up and coming one is Stanovich on Green Bay. So, what's that?
I said we could use a little bit of that.
The
Vikings could
Callahan
use a little bit of that offensive line.
I don't know if he's a head coach, but I could see maybe an enhanced role for somebody, I wouldn't mind seeing Callahan get into it. But again, why are people not talking about, I feel like Rich Bisaccia is so disrespected right now. The most disrespected.
Yeah, of the three, I'm taking Rich for sure. Guy? But to be honest, Todd Bowles, I don't like him as much as a lot of the other candidates, but he would wreak havoc with the Vikings defensive personnel. Those linebackers would be destroying, like Anthony Barr with a guy with a guy who's willing to have him blitz more. Anyway, but no, of those three, I'm taking Rich because he brought the locker room together.
Well, as the Lions
he
guy,
passes the vibe check. I like that take actually.
And Rich. Going with that, like I said, here I am with Dan Campbell, right? So the Dolphins did the same thing that the Raiders are doing with Bisaccia with Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell should have been the Dolphins head coach, but just because he's interim and they want to have him, this big splashy name in the offseason, they screwed that up because Dan Campbell was this guy who gets the team going. Look what he's doing with the Lions. He could have done that with the Dolphins. Same thing with the Raiders situation. And that guy is going to make a good head coach for somebody
Mm-hmm.
He really is, because look at the Raiders. All of the players are going out there going, we want this guy as our head coach. Screw the interview process. Make this guy our head coach. He's the interim. Just take that status away and make him the head coach.
It's interesting though. I think, I mean, people don't necessarily, that interim tag, but also like, a lot of people want, especially, fan bases want the next young, offensive guru, he's too old. You can't give him a head coaching job. He's too old.
Somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking for Mike McDaniels, but he already said he won't go. Or Mike McDaniel, the 49ers offensive coordinator, who's been like living in the hip pocket of the Shanahans for he's been like their prisoner apparently for like 20 years. He won't go to a state that doesn't have legalized marijuana, is what someone close to him did say though. And they weren't.
Good for him.
Look up, and
you go to the Bears.
So he's going to be the Denver new head coach. Huh?
Exactly.
I think it's legalized in Illinois. You go to the Bears.
There you go. He would scheme up some fun stuff. That running game would get back on track. All right. I think, we might have gone over a little bit today, guys.
Way hit our limit tonight.
Hey, we had a lot of great stuff. Once again, thanks for joining us. I feel like we always get some great conversation, especially when you're here, Matt. So thanks again for joining us.
Oh my God. Thank you for popping in, Matt. That was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Absolutely.
Man, we appreciate you, man.
So once again,
thank you so much.
Freezin 4 NFC North podcast, and we will see what the Packers do this week. So
my prediction, they lose.
There we go. The only guy we made predict too. We only made one guy predict.
Yeah, you made me predict, and I predict the upset, and now
they're not losing.
They're
not losing.
All right. I can't wait. What an iconic matchup.
And then Rodgers moves on. The Raiders trade Carr, and Rodgers becomes a Raider.
We just went down a whole rabbit hole right before we're leaving. So we'll send everybody else out on that, and have a great week, guys.
We have to end with that. That's awful.
Good night, guys.
Good night.